Why Mirror Lake? Mirror Lake is a very central part of the Storrs campus of the University of Connecticut. It is a meaningful place to every member of our group, and we each have fond memories at this relaxing and serene spot. Whether it's the laughs we shared by the banks, the peace of mind we find on lonely walks, or the companionship we encounter on group excursions. This beautiful location has been imprinted in our shared experiences. We want to further our understanding of Mirror Lake in the present time and how it is and has been affected by pollution and human-driven deposition. We want to understand the complex interactions between human activities and natural ecosystems in order to preserve Mirror Lake for future generations.
Sourced from an analysis report from James Davies, they have concluded that there are organic compounds such as 4,4, DDD, DDE, and DDT, pesticides 1, acinethyne, anthracene, fluoranthene, and fluorins-1, as well as heavy metals such as lead, mercury, arsenic, cadmium, chromium, and silver-1, contaminating and polluting the matter at Mirror Lake.
How has water pollution affected Mirror Lake? Human interactions are one of the leading causes of water pollution in Mirror Lake. Human activity is harming the lake's pristine waters, whether by runoff from surrounding roads and parking lots or the deposit of waste. Fertilizers and pesticides used in campus landscaping can also end up in the lake, leading to water pollution. Well, humans are responsible for much of the pollution in Mirror Lake. They are not the only ones. Wildlife, particularly the vast population of geese in the area, contributes to the lake's pollution. Lauren Pulaski, an environmental studies major, put simply, the goose poop leaches into Mirror Lake and pollutes the water. The large number of geese around the lake causes a buildup of waste products which can contain dangerous germs and nutrients that affect water quality.
Let us now take a closer look at what a survey by Geoenvironmental Incorporated found in their analysis of various samples of sediment of Mirror Lake in a feasibility report that was done in order to evaluate possible restorations to the lake. Looking at the table on the right side of this slide, we can see that it is a summary of RSR exceedances. RSR in this case stands for Connecticut's Remediation Standard Regulations, or RSRs, which specify the standards for the remediation of environmental pollution in soil and groundwater. This means that for any test that was done in this survey, an RSR exceedance indicates not only that a certain substance can be confirmed within the sample, but that the quantity of it actually exceeds what the Connecticut government deems to be a safe level. Any RSR exceedance can mean that there is sufficient quantity of certain substances that can have a real impact on the organisms that come into contact with them. As we can see from the table, a large number of polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons, or PAHs, are present at high levels within Mirror Lake sediment, along with various pesticides. PAHs are dangerous because they are hydrophobic, meaning they do not dissolve in the water, and many PAHs are mutagenic, carcinogenic, teratogenic, and immunotoxic to living organisms. This shows how these substances can have ecotoxic effects on aquatic life and even birds. They are, however, not the only substance causing harm because pesticides can affect aquatic plants, decrease dissolved oxygen in the water, and can cause physiological and behavioral changes in fish populations. All of these external influences on Mirror Lake, partially from animals but more significantly from humans, have severely damaged this ecosystem, and if they are continued, can cause irreversible damage even in the short term.
What will Mirror Lake look like in the far future? Low levels of light penetration and high levels of algae bloom indicate a heavy algae bloom and therefore a low oxygen environment within the lake. This means that biomass is sedimented over and over again until the ground level rises up. Eventually, the biomass will sediment so much to the ground will rise to the point where the lake is gone. Water will disappear and what's left will turn into soil.
Continued eutrophication will increase sediment deposition rates. Nutrients will accumulate in the water, resulting in increased growth of microorganisms that may deplete the water of oxygen. As excess nutrient stimulates algae growth, these organisms will eventually die and settle to the lake bottom. Over time, this organic matter accumulates, along with other sediment particles, forming layers of sediment on the lake bed. As sediment accumulates on the bottom of the lake, it gradually reduces the depth of the water and decreases the volume of the lake basin. The increased sediment deposition will fill up the lake's basin. This process, known as sedimentation, can eventually lead to the filling up of the lake's basin as more and more sediment settles out of the water and accumulates on the lake bed. Sediment contains evidence of the Anthropocene era, the time during which humans have had a substantial impact on our planet. With sediment layers, synthetic substances, metals, and uncomposed waste can be found. Without human intervention, Mirror Lake will cease to exist as a lake anymore and return to its marshy origins. Without efforts to mitigate factors such as sedimentation and eutrophication, the lake may undergo ecological changes that lead to its transformation back into a marshy environment, resembling its natural state before human alteration.
Coming to our conclusion now. Today we examined two different questions and were able to find answers to them, although it must be said that some of the answers that we found are rather unsettling regarding our beloved lake. Our first question was, how has water pollution affected Mirror Lake, and what will it look like in the far future? We have found that Mirror Lake has been polluted with various synthetic substances and heavy metals. This water pollution can have severe impacts on the ecosystem of the lake. When the lake eventually ceases to exist in the future because it fills up with sediments, these pollutants will be contained within the sediment. After the sediment turns to soil over time, it will be completely unusable as fertile ground. This leads us to our second question, which was, how will human-driven deposition impact the future of this lake? In this regard, we have found that human-caused eutrophication will continuously increase sediment deposition rates of Mirror Lake. Given enough time, this sediment deposition will lead to the lake being completely filled up with sediment. It will then cease to exist as a lake anymore and will over time return to its marshy origins, from which it has been altered by us humans for our pleasure. In conclusion, while Mirror Lake is certainly a staple of the University of Connecticut and is a treasured spot by many, us humans have caused severe damage to it and will have to take serious measures if we want to ensure its survival as a thriving ecosystem, both in the short term and especially in the long term.